Everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a three-game Major League Baseball slate. It's going to be a very short slate. We just have three games here, so before I get started, though, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? I do have some core plays today, Keibert Ruiz, Jake Berger, and Michael Harris. It doesn't look like there's going to be any weather issues today either, so that's good. Pitching is very rough. Really, the only pitcher that's worth even taking a really hard look at is Strider for the for the Braves. He's got a tough matchup here against the Dodgers, but he's capable of top tier game. His high risk, high reward with his big strikeout potential. If he does well, you'll need him to cash. If he doesn't do well, you'll be screwed if you use him. So it's going to be up and down. All the other pitchers are very high risk, high reward. And so I do have the write up on YouTube that you can look at what I have to say about each of those pitchers. But you're just pretty much going to be throwing stuff at the wall in this on this slate from that perspective. Let's go and get our catchers here. We're going to start with Sean Murphy for Atlanta. He's got a good matchup here against the Dodgers, and he has some nice upside in this matchup. He doesn't have quite as much home run upside as some of the other matchups he's had recently, but he definitely has potential for a good game here. And he looks like he might be out of the slump that he has kind of been in for a little while. Then Keibert Ruiz for Washington is a good option today. He's hit the ball very well recently with the 315 batting average. He's just seeing the ball well. He also has some nice home run upside. He's got good hitting potential, and he doesn't need a ton to pay off at this price. His teammate Riley Adams, if he was to draw the start, he would also be somebody to consider today as a decent option. Where'd he go? As he has hit the ball pretty well throughout the season, though he has been a little bit slumpy. He does draw some home run metrics, though. Maybe in the first base, we'll look at Matt Olson for Atlanta. Now, he's got a good matchup here against Lynn, who does have a tendency to have some bad games. I do think he's been a little bit streaky recently, but he has some home run upside in this matchup, and he's hitting the ball pretty well. He just needs to have a couple games where he's had some more consistent multi-hit games and stuff. But he has been hitting good throughout the entire season. A good value play here is Lamont Wade Jr. for San Francisco. Now he's been up and down throughout the season, but he does draw some good potential today, and he does have nice upside on this matchup. Though he has been inconsistent recently, he does have that nice potential, and he's nice and cheap and helps you pay off other options. Josh Bell is also in play for Miami. He's been somewhat inconsistent throughout the season, but he does draw home run metrics today. He's also had 3 home runs over the last 10 games, and so he's a good contrarian option today. And then Menendez for Washington. He's got nice power sometimes. He's been somewhat inconsistent throughout the year, but he's hitting the ball really well right now, and I like his upside with several multi-hit games. The only downside with him is that Washington's not getting a lot of guys on base, which even when he gets the multi-hits, he's not getting a ton of RBIs. But he is capable of a home run occasionally, and this is one situation where it looks really good. Maybe in second base, we'll look at Luis Arias for Miami. Now, he has not hit the ball well recently. He's been good all season up until the second half, which he's been a little bit rough. He is a little bit pricey too, and he doesn't tend to have a huge home run upside either. He also doesn't really do much, but he does draw good metrics today, and so I do think he's a viable option on the slate, but he is hard to roster at the price. Mookie Betts is also in play for the Dodgers. Now, if you think Strider's going to have a bad game, then load up on the Mets stack, and then that's going to be one way to win today. But he is high risk, high reward going against Strider, but he's been in a really good spot lately, hitting over 500 over the last 10 games, and he's got home runs coming out of his elbows as well right now, so he's a great option on the slate. And then Dario Estrada for San Francisco is a good spot inside the San Francisco stack that you could run today, as he's hitting the ball pretty well. He's not a huge home run threat, but he does have them occasionally, and he has good metrics here for a pretty solid game. Maybe in the third base, we're going to look at Austin Riley. Now, Riley is an inconsistent hitter recently, but he does draw good home run metrics today, and I think is a viable option today, especially against weak pitching. Machado for San Diego is an interesting play because he does have home run potential, but he's high risk, high reward. He is pretty expensive as well. And then a cheaper option who I really like a lot today is Jake Berger, who's hit the ball really good lately, especially since he's been in Miami. He's had a pretty good season. Now, he does tendency to have low fantasy point per game metrics sometimes, but he doesn't strike out a ton, and he's been getting good hits. And he does have home run potential, which he hasn't hit but one of the last 10 games. So I think he's got a really good matchup here for one of those, and he's one of my favorite plays on the slate. Maybe a shortstop, we'll look at Birdie for Miami. He's another guy from Miami that has some potential today, though he's not a home run hitter, really. He does have some upside, but he does tend to have low scoring as well. Miami kind of fits in that category, but on a small slate like this, they have some potential. Xander Bogaerts can also be a good option here for shortstop, though he has been inconsistent recently. He does have some home run upside as he's had 3 over the last 10. He's hitting the ball fairly well, and he does have some limited stolen base potential. CJ Abrams also has some potential for stolen bases as he's getting a lot, which is really boosting his fantasy points per game. But that's also costing he's also costing a lot more money as a result of that upside. He also has a pretty decent matchup today, but he's not a huge home run hitter, but he can do it occasionally, and he doesn't strike out a ton, which makes him a viable option on the slate. Maybe the outfielders, we're going to start with Acuna. Obviously, he's just been absolutely phenomenal lately and throughout the season. Though he's only had 1 home run over the last 10 games, it came a couple games ago. He had a pretty good game there in his first game against Colorado, and I expect him to have a pretty good game today as well. Then we'll look at Chisholm Jr. for Miami. He's been very inconsistent throughout the season, but he does draw home run metrics today. And on a small slate, Miami is definitely a stackable team today, and they have some good options. Jock Peterson is in play for San Francisco. He's hit the ball very well recently, and he's a great option on the slate. He was very close to being a core play as he's hitting the ball so well. The only issue really with him is sometimes he doesn't have a big fantasy points games, even if he gets a couple hits, because San Francisco has tendency to have struggle with runs, but he is capable today with in this nice plus matchup that San Francisco's in. Michael Harris is hitting the ball very well, and he is a core play for me. He does draw good metrics today. He's a little bit pricey, but he has home run upside and stolen base potential, and he's had some good games recently as well with multi hits. Then we'll look at Brian De La Cruz, and he's kind of a sneaky play today. I don't know that he's going to be super highly owned, but he has home run potential today, and there's really not a ton of guys that have that. His fantasy point per game is a little bit low, but he is capable of a big one today. And if you use him and he hits a home run, he's definitely a guy that would, break the slate open for you. Eddie Rosario has hit the ball extremely well over the last 10 games he's played. He doesn't play every day, but when he does play, he's been managing to put good fantasy points on the board, and so that makes him a viable option. And then Ozuna has hit the ball just very good lately. With 7 home runs in the last 10 games, he's had 3 in the last 4 games, and he's hitting the ball very well. While he hits the ball well, he's somebody to use. He is expensive though, but he is capable of a great game here. So he's a great option on the slate. With that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.